What's up, guys? Welcome to Mangles and Whales. My name is Greg, and thank you for tuning in to episode 4 of the Average Player's Guide to Dark Matter, a series in which I provide some tips and advice on achieving the Dark Matter Camo in Black Ops 3 from the perspective of an average or casual player just like me. This is part 1 of the Snipers, and in this one I'm going to be going over the Drakon and the P-06. And the next one, the very next video I'll do is going to be on the Locust and the SVG-100. So in this video we're doing the non-bolt action sort of spammable sniper rifles. And I'm going to be going over the Chameleon Camo, which of course is the Bloodthirsties or the 5 kill streaks. And what you're watching in the background is going to be 3 5 kill streaks with the Drakon, and then 3 of those with the P-06. I'm going to start off with some general tips, and then I'm going to move into some specific tips with each gun and then some other stuff. So, my first thing that I want to mention is you're going to always want to stay close to team support when you're doing this. Don't be the one to push up into the enemy side of the map by yourself, because you're probably going to have to then engage enemies coming at you from multiple directions, and it's going to be too hectic to be effective with your sniper rifle. So, you want to keep your back safe, stay at the edges of the map, and look in. Or if you're not doing that, make sure that you have teammates right behind you who are covering your back, especially if they are spawning right behind you. That's usually a pretty good indication that your back is clear. Going right along with that, you're going to want to make sure that you are only engaging a minimal number of lines of sight, preferably just one. And you can figure out which line of sight to engage by, of course, looking at where your teammates are on the minimap. And wherever you see a big pocket of not having any teammates, that's generally where your enemies are going to be coming from. That's where they're spawning. They're over there somewhere. So yeah, and you're going to want to try and make sure those lines of sight are as long as possible, because that's where you have the advantage with your sniper rifle, is at range. Okay, moving on to camping. Camping can definitely be a part of your strategy. You just have to make sure you're doing it right. So what I mean by doing it right is you're going to want to rotate your camp spots. And once you pick up a kill or two in each camp spot, rotate around, because you're going to piss off people and they're going to come for revenge, and you don't want to be on the receiving end of that, because they will definitely figure out the best way to deal with you. So you want to continually be taking them by surprise, and it won't be surprising if you're right where you were when you killed them last time. So make sure you're rotating your camp spots. And also I want to say, only camp when you have a really good idea that enemies are about to be challenging you. Because if you're just sitting there, you're likely to lose focus and then be taken by surprise when you thought you were prepared to deal with an enemy. So camp with a game plan, that's for sure. And don't just camp it out. Don't try to get all 5 kills in one camp spot. It's probably not going to work. And okay, so for the game mode, I recommend either Team Deathmatch or Ground War for kind of 2 opposing reasons. With Team Deathmatch, you can get some fewer tryhardy players, and you can kind of slow the game down, play it at your pace. And that's actually what I preferred, and all the clips you're watching are from Team Deathmatch. I just thought it worked nicely. I was able to kind of play it slow. Don't worry about your score per minute. Just you know, take your time, wait for the right situation to strike. But with Ground War, you can end up with a nice grouping of a lot of enemies to shoot at. You can get some collaterals. Your enemies are often focused on a lot of different things. I mean, they have a lot of your teammates to worry about, and also usually an objective. So it just kind of depends on your personal preference. But I think those 2 game modes work well. All right, and one other thing I wanted to mention, one other tip, and actually it's what you're going to be watching right here, is engage enemies who are already engaged in a gunfight, basically with one of your teammates. It's a great time to strike. It's a great way to get an easy kill. You'll see that this next kill that I get is doing just that. Yeah, basically, if you're doing that, you're going to be you have a huge advantage in that gunfight, because that enemy that you're choosing to challenge is already focused on somebody else. They have to sort of deal with multiple things at once, and they're not usually going to be able to deal with you. So as you see here, I have a teammate to my left who is eventually going to start moving. I think he might be AFK right now, but just wait a couple seconds. I'm just kind of waiting it out, waiting for a flanker. And you'll see he'll start moving here in just a second. I thought it was actually, there it is. Okay, so he's moving now, and he will intercept an enemy right here who shows up on the minimap because he's firing an unsilenced weapon. And I know that that enemy is probably not going to be prepared to deal with me right then, so I go ahead and challenge him and get a nice easy kill. He was probably like reloading at that point. So, and the last thing I'm going to show you with the Drakon is a nice little line of sight on evac. This actually was part of another bloodthirsty streak, but I didn't show the whole streak. But this is a nice little, a great little line of sight. I actually learned this from Exclusive Ace in his Maps Exposed series, which is a nice little series. Definitely check it out. Can definitely be helpful for finding some cool little lines of sight, especially with sniper rifles. So we are going to be moving on to the P-06 now, but I did want to give a couple of tips on just using the Drakon. I'm assuming that you've probably done the assault rifles already. If not, I definitely recommend doing those first. And you can check out my assault rifle video. I've already done one on that. But with the Drakon, it's going to feel similar to the Shiva, but not exactly the same. There are some similarities, but it is different. The handling stats on the Drakon are way weaker. It's got a slower ADS time, aim down sights time, slower just handling, just moving while you're aim down sights. It's got way lower aim assist. So you're just going to have to be a little bit more cautious with the Drakon than you were with the Shiva. But otherwise, it does have very similar kind of stats and you know, and that sort of thing. So kind of treated as similar, but not the same. All right, so moving on to the P-06. This is one that I feel like you either love or you hate. There's a lot of love for this, and there's a lot of hate for this gun out there, as far as I can tell. But I definitely think it is learnable, and it can actually be really fun and not too difficult to use if you get the hang of it. So my best tip with it is you don't have to wait to line up your shot perfectly before you pull the trigger. So you can actually pull that trigger before you are sort of confident in your aim. And you can adjust your aim in the sort of split second you have in between when you pull the trigger and when the shots actually leave the gun. And I actually think that's a really interesting mechanic, and it actually ends up being really helpful if you get the hang of it, because you can kind of separate your two tasks that you have to do, which are pulling the trigger and aiming and being right on target. So you can kind of separate those into two separate things, whereas with all the other sniper rifles in the game, you have to do both of those at the exact same time. So that's what I liked about the P-06, and once you get the hang of dealing with that sort of delay in the shooting, it can actually work to your advantage. Kind of reminds me of quick scoping in previous Call of Duties, actually, where if your aim wasn't perfectly true and you pulled the trigger anyway, you could drag your scope across your enemy and your aim assist would help you get the kill. It kind of works similarly in it as, you know, you can pull the trigger before your aim is true, and then you can drag your scope across to perfect it. And once you have it perfected, then your bullets are leaving the gun finally, and you'll get the kill. Anyway, yeah. So it's also okay to miss with the P-06. So you don't have to, again, you don't have to worry so much about perfecting your aim, because if you miss, you can pull the trigger again right away. It's got a really nice fire rate. The burst delay isn't bad at all. And you actually only need 2 of your 3 bullets per burst to connect in order to get you the kill in core game modes, which is definitely how I recommend using this. I know some people have recommended hardcore. I don't think that's necessary at all. So hopefully that helps with the P-06. Just remember, you can pull the trigger before you've perfected your aim. You can kind of pull the left trigger and the right trigger at the same time, kind of as you're aiming down sights, pull the trigger. And I really like the default scope too, because it shows you exactly when the burst is going to leave the gun. It kind of zooms in, and when it's like all the way zoomed in, that's when the burst leaves the gun. So anyway, I think it ends up being pretty usable. Okay, so as far as specialist, if you haven't seen my rejack tip video, I'll link that again. That's probably the best one to use, because that gives you a second chance on getting your bloodthirsty. But if you don't want to use rejack, then kinetic armor can be good. In fact, actually, I use kinetic armor right here. I know there's an enemy around this corner, and I wasn't confident to challenge him without using kinetic armor, so I threw on my kinetic armor, and that gave me the confidence to go challenge him. Even though kinetic armor it wasn't actually necessary, I would have gotten the kill with or without it. It gave me the confidence to challenge that gunfight. So I like kinetic armor. As far as the suppressor goes, go ahead and run it. It's definitely, it'll help you out. Just keep in mind that enemies can still see your bullets as they whiz through the air with a sniper rifle, and they can still hear you too, especially with the P-06. You just won't pop up on their minimap. Another thing that's good to know is the Varix sight now is patched, and it will allow you to do your chameleon camo challenges while you're using it, whereas in the past it kind of like messed that up. Although I will say with the P-06, I vastly prefer the default scope because it gives you that little bit of information on when your burst is leaving the gun. Okay, what else? Oh, yeah, I was going to mention with the Drakon, to do the one-shot kills, that's when I would choose hardcore mode. But other than that, I recommend playing core. And then this last little clip is just showing you that the P-06 actually can compete in very close range situations. But if you end up with too many enemies at close range, it's likely that you'll be overpowered pretty quickly. But still, it can get you out of a sticky situation because it can actually be used to quick scope. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope this helps you out. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. All right, take it easy, guys.